In Hindu cosmology, time is a closed loop of 4 million years, which can be divided into 4 segments. Each one of these segments is called a yuga. The yugas are segmented in a ratio of 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, with the first yuga being the longest of the cycle. This yuga is called the Satya Yuga, and it is characterized as a golden age. As the loop progresses through the segments, there is an increase in conflict, hypocrisy, and moral decay until the loop is completed and the Satya Yuga begins again. The fourth and final yuga is associated with spiritual abandonment, materialism, and the triumph of selfishness. This is the yuga in which we currently exist. It began 5,000 years ago, and it is called the Kali Yuga. As the cosmological loop entered the Kali Yuga in around 3000 BC, a new character was being born into Babylonian mythology. That character was a god by the name of Marduk. This god wasn't like other deities who preceded him. He was supreme, omnipresent, all-powerful, all-knowing. In a short period of time after, similar gods were conceived of in the forms of the Ahura Mazda and Yahweh, the god of the Hebrew Bible. In the 1976 book, The Bicameral Mind, Princeton psychologist Julian Jaynes explains that there is no written evidence of the lived experience of the self from before the 3rd millennium BC. What Jaynes is referring to is the I, the internal monologue, the pilot that guides the human body through this life. Before the emergence of the self, the human psyche was alive with competing voices, archetypes with conflicting desires. But there was no I in the process with some sense for what me as a singular entity actually wants. If you interrogate the nature of God, you will find it to be riddled with paradoxes. He's everywhere, yet he's unknowable. He's all-encompassing, yet we're made in his image. It is clear that God responds to some archetypal structure, but in what capacity? The mystery of God becomes unraveled as soon as we turn our attention inward and recognize the plain truth that the paradoxical qualities of God are also properties of the self. In the 3rd millennium BC, humanity gave life to a new, supreme, emergent archetype, the divine self. The next 400,000 years would see the very worst of things, but perhaps also the very best. A full rotation of the Earth happens over a period of time that we call a day. A revolution of the Earth around the Sun happens over a period that we call a year. For the inhabitants of planet Earth, these time periods have astrological significance. But events like a year and a day are more than just the cosmic context in which we arbitrarily live our lives. Life on Earth has evolved with these repeating patterns, and the same celestial timeframes are intrinsic to the human body. A day dictates the human sleep cycle, and a year is the time frame for a hormonal cycle called the endocrine shift. The human male peaks in testosterone production around late summer. As the sun crosses the vernal equinox, signifying the start of winter, his thyroid becomes more active as his body anticipates a period of more calories and more rest. And as the days become shorter or longer, the pineal gland regulates the brain's production of melatonin to optimize the human sleep cycle for the changing light conditions. As such, years and days have astrological significance, but they also have what we might refer to as practical significance. The cycles of the day and the year are the metronome that underpins the cadence of our daily lives. Years and days are intuitive distances of time. We can conceptualize a year with relative ease. What happens when we need language to describe long periods of time, like years in the thousands? For this, we tend to use a different kind of time, practical time. We talk in decades, centuries, and millennia. Each of these values represents an incrementing power of 10. Why is the number 10 significant? Because we have 10 fingers, and there was a time before calculators. Decades, centuries, and millennia are practically significant, but have no significance astrologically. There is another way that we can conceptualize time. One that allows us to actually make valid predictions, and in this way, have a glimpse into the future. The Milankovitch cycle refers to a 21,000-year geological event where the Earth completes a revolution of its axial tilt. This event is also known as a great year. The Milankovitch cycle has been observed by humans since before written language as the precession of the equinoxes. Neolithic humans noticed that the sun on the vernal equinox rose into a slightly different part of the sky each year. They followed the movement via a system of celestial subdivision that we today call the zodiac. The sun moves at a rate of 1 degree every 72 years. It takes roughly 2,100 years for the sun to pass through each individual constellation. Each of these 2,100-year-long periods is called an age. 12,000 years ago, the Sahara Desert was a green subtropical forest, and the sun at the vernal equinox rose into the constellation of Leo. 15,000 years from today, the sun at the vernal equinox will rise again into the constellation of Leo. And as this transition occurs, the African monsoon will wake from its 20,000-year sleep, and the Sahara will once again turn green. We are confounded by our perception of time, a line running off in both directions from a point that we have defined to be zero. It may be that our contemporary perception of time is a perversion of how time is truly understood by the human psyche. It may just be the case that our deepest intuition as humans is to recognize time at all scales, the day, the year, and even the infinite, as cyclical. When we think about the dawn of civilization and the early Bronze Age, we tend to have two locations in mind. One is Mesopotamia, and the other is Egypt. There is a third Bronze Age center, one that is all too often ignored, and that is the Great Bronze Age civilization of the Indus Valley. What might surprise you is that of the three Bronze Age powers, the Indus Valley Civilization was by far the largest in scale. At this stage in this channel, I'm basically obliged in every video to mention the Fishman Owanes, who met the Ubayyads of Lower Mesopotamia and ushered in the dawn of civilization. According to the Babylonians, he arrived from the Persian Gulf 6,000 years ago and gave the Ubaid culture of Lower Mesopotamia the gifts of civilization. In a shockingly short period of time, the Ubaids began to write, farm, and build cities. There is another origin myth that occurs 6,000 years ago, one in which a serpent offers wisdom to a man and woman who live in a state of blissful ignorance. This is the story told in the first book of the Hebrew Bible. The interchangeable serpent and fish characters can both be seen as representations of the Sumerian god Enki. In Sumerian mythology, Enki took the form of a serpent, a dragon, or a fish, The civilization of the Indus Valley had its own origin myth, one in which the first man, who went by the name of Manu, was given the gift of wisdom by Matsya, a fish. I made a video where I covered the entirety of European history from the Neanderthals to the inception of democracy. In that video, I talked about the Yamnaya, a culture who originated in the Caspian steppe alongside horse-drawn carriages and empowered by the invention of the wheel. The Yamnaya would spread westward into Europe, east into Persia, and south towards the Indian subcontinent. The great legacy of the Yamnaya is the language they brought with them, a language woven into the fabric of about half the spoken languages on planet Earth today. In Europe, the Yamnaya language is known as Proto-Indo-European. About 4,000 years ago, a branch of the Yamnaya culture that we call the Indo-Aryans arrived in the Indus Valley. Both modern Greek and modern Norwegian are Indo-European languages. Both the Greek pantheon and the Norse pantheon are inspired by the Yamnaya mythology. You may see a connection between the gods Thor and Zeus. Both are mappings of a paternalistic archetype to the natural phenomenon of thunder. The Yamnaya who arrived in the Indus Valley brought with them a complex pantheon of pagan deities, including Indra, Agni, and Soma. Indra is the wrathful king of the Indo-Aryan pantheon. He is both king of the gods and the god of thunder. The synthesis of the Yamnaya pantheon and Indus Valley cosmology gave life to Vedic philosophy and laid the groundwork for Hinduism. So while the resemblance may not be so clear to us today, we can see that the Hindu and European pantheons are distant cousins, separated by about 4,000 years. But they are not without their differences. Let's talk about one crucial difference between Hindu and European pantheistic philosophy. In Greek mythology, the world inhabited by both us and the gods is preceded by a primordial entity called chaos. Chaos is ambivalent, uncaring, pure entropy. From chaos are born the first deities, Gaia, Tartarus, and Eros. Gaia gives birth to the Titans, who in turn give birth to the Olympians, and through this process, the universe moves from chaos to cosmos, a state of divine order and harmony. In Hindu mythology, there is also a primordial entity called Brahman. Brahman also represents the nothingness that preceded matter, time, and energy, but Brahman is characterized by a state of pure consciousness and divine, undisturbed peace. As manifestations of this primordial entity Brahman become more and more material, eventually culminating in us, this peace becomes more interrupted. You see, in Hinduism, what the Greeks called Eros or Tartarus, what we might perhaps call the spirit, is not constructing a tower to reach heaven. Rather, it is a distraction, moving us away from a state of pure internal peace that can be found within. The New Testament makes no mention of the life of Jesus of Nazareth between the ages of 12 and 30. A 19th century theory called the lost years hypothesis supposes that, in this time, Jesus traveled to the Indus Valley, perhaps settling in Tibet, and discovered the teachings of the Buddha. Whether or not this really happened, the theory points to an uncanny similarity between two quiet revolutions that were occurring in both the East and the West at almost exactly the same time. In Hinduism, it is said that in each age, the avatar of Vishnu will come to Earth to provide exactly the lessons required to survive the challenges of that time. In the 1960s, while teaching psychology at Princeton, Julian Jaynes noticed something strange. In the Iliad, composed around 1200 to 800 BCE, characters never show inner thoughts, doubt, or self-reflection. Instead, they hear clear external voices that tell them exactly what to do. These voices are described as gods. Jaynes checked other early civilizations. The same pattern appeared in the oldest parts of the Hebrew Bible, in Sumerian and Babylonian texts, and in early Egyptian records. People did not decide. They obeyed auditory commands they experienced as divine. He then examined language itself. In early Greek, there were no words for mind, consciousness, or introspection as we use them today. Words that later meant soul originally referred to physical organs or external forces. Jaynes argued that humans before the 2nd millennium BC existed in a state comparable to what we might call schizophrenia, but with no intervening sense of self to act as the preeminent regulator of their actions. We are often shocked by the brutality of the ancient world, while simultaneously humbled by its displays of heroism. Can we imagine the landscape of our minds without the influence of our own intervening voice? Maybe to die for honor would not be so unthinkable. Maybe it would be easier to kill out of spite. The Greek pantheon maps to living components of the human psyche. These components are evolved psychic traits that have been beneficial for survival since we ourselves were fish people who walked out of the Earth's oceans. We call them archetypes. It is undeniable that there is something fundamentally different about the God of the Abrahamic faiths. The immensity of his scope, the depth to which he is imbued into our thoughts. I've talked a lot in this video about time. Time is represented in the Hindu pantheon by Kali. In Greek mythology, time is personified in the Titan, Kronos, the father of Zeus. Just as Kronos stands next to chaos at the beginning of all things, so does Kali stand next to chaos at the end. In the beginning, there was void. The first line of the Hebrew Bible introduces Yahweh, the manifestation of the archetype of the self. This line makes it clear that in this new paradigm, the primordial entity of chaos, whether positive or negative, now exists within the concept of a beginning, and therefore the concept of time.
In the beginning, God was nothing. So he started making stuff.
The archetype of the self was born at the turn of the Kali Yuga, our omnipresent, psychic God who has just one fatal flaw, a debilitating fear of non-existence. In this age of the material, we take refuge in the shade of our possessions. Maybe through ownership we can gain leverage over fate. We enlarge the self, we conquer, hoping that this struggle will culminate in the conquest of time, the conquest of death. The despot lives without peace. We know this, yet we desire his riches. The internal I is the great despair of the Kali Yuga. I want, I deserve, I am. These statements pave the way to spiritual purgatory. Our animal cousins live without the archetype of the self, and thus without the psychic technology of God. They do not know what it is to both desire and suffer in the chronic way that we do. But though they do not wrestle with God, they also cannot know the depths of peace that one can achieve when they befriend the Leviathan within. There is a well-known parable taught to students of Zen Buddhism, and it goes like this. A Zen master by the name of Ryokan lived in a tiny hut at the foot of a mountain. He owned almost nothing. One evening, a thief broke into his hut while Ryokan was out. The thief searched everywhere, but found nothing worth stealing. When Ryokan returned and surprised the thief, he said kindly, "You have come a long way to visit me. You should not return empty-handed. Please take my clothes as a gift." The bewildered thief took the clothes and left. Ryokan then sat naked outside his hut, gazing at the bright moon. He said softly to himself, "Poor fellow, I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon."